My sister fired me using our dead parents' money. That's not a metaphor. That's not exaggeration. That happened. Inside a private conference room at First National Bank, under soft lighting and a framed painting of sailboats, Vanessa Whitmore, 34 years old, newly empowered, perfectly composed, looked at me and said, "Your authority ends today." And I laughed. But before we continue, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell for updates. Not a nervous giggle. Not disbelief. I actually laughed. Let me back up. My name is Claire Whitmore. I'm 32. For the last 6 years, I've managed the Whitmore Family Trust, a $12.4 million fund our parents created before they died in a car accident 7 years ago. It started at $8.1 million. I grew it carefully, methodically. Municipal bonds, dividend aristocrats, real estate index funds. Slow money, safe money. Vanessa always said I was afraid to play bigger. The trust agreement had a clause. When she turned 34, she could assume majority voting power as co-beneficiary. That birthday came, and instead of cake, she chose control. She hired a flashy private firm, Hawthorne & Bell. Promised double-digit returns, crypto exposure, venture capital, international tech startups. She said I was holding the family back. So there we were. Lawyer present. Files stacked. My termination letter already printed. Have you ever watched someone wait years for power, only to use it in the first 5 minutes? The banker wouldn't meet my eyes. The lawyer, Martin Feld, 58, cleared his throat and read the clause out loud like a weather report. Vanessa didn't hesitate. She voted me out as managing trustee, removed my $180,000 annual management salary, revoked my signing authority. I nodded, calm, signed the papers, and laughed. Because here's what no one in that room understood. I wasn't surprised. 3 months earlier, I requested a forensic audit trigger under a secondary compliance clause. Vanessa ignored it. But the clause didn't disappear. And there was something on page 47 of the trust document she had clearly never read. I walked out of the bank unemployed, disinherited from control. Smiling. Vanessa thought she had won. But what she did next would start a chain reaction no one, especially her, was ready for. The day my sister turned 34, she didn't pop champagne. She popped the safety off. That's how it felt. Vanessa had been counting down to that birthday for years. Not because she cared about aging. Not because she feared it. But because the Whitmore Family Trust had a very specific clause. At 34, she could assume majority voting control as co-beneficiary. And Vanessa hates waiting. For context, when our parents died, I was 25. She was 27. The trust named us equal beneficiaries, but operational control defaulted to the more financially qualified heir until the elder reached 34. I had just finished my MBA at NYU. Finance concentration. I understood fiduciary duty, risk tolerance, asset allocation. So I stepped in. Over 6 years, I grew the trust from $8.1 million to $12.4 million. Not through gambling, through discipline. Municipal bonds yielding steady 3 to 4%. Blue-chip dividend stocks. Broad market ETFs. Commercial REIT exposure. Nothing sexy, but nothing reckless. Vanessa called it playing defense. She, on the other hand, worked in high-level marketing for luxury brands. Big campaigns, big risks, big bonuses. She lived for acceleration. She believed money sitting safely was money wasted. 2 months before her birthday, she introduced me to Hawthorne & Bell, boutique investment firm. Aggressive growth strategy, promising 15 to 18% annual returns. Heavy tech exposure, crypto-backed instruments, pre-IPO placements. I asked simple questions. What's the volatility projection? What's the liquidity plan? What's the downside scenario? Their answers were confident. Too confident. Vanessa accused me of being territorial. Said I didn't trust her. Said I liked control too much. Have you ever noticed how caution looks like fear to impatient people? The week she turned 34, she called an emergency trustee review meeting at First National Bank. Lawyer present. Documentation prepared. The clause activated. She voted. I was removed as managing trustee. Within 48 hours of taking control, Vanessa reallocated 60% of the trust portfolio into higher-risk assets. Crypto index funds, venture capital pools, leveraged tech ETFs. She even authorized limited margin exposure to maximize opportunity windows. 60%. In under 2 days. That's not gradual transition. That's a personality shift in spreadsheet form. The markets had been unusually calm for months. Almost suspiciously calm. Analysts were whispering about tech overvaluation, crypto froth, interest rate pressures. But confidence feels invincible when it's new. That night, Vanessa hosted a private dinner with her new advisors. She posted a photo on Instagram, champagne glasses raised, captioned "New Era. Bigger Vision." Meanwhile, I went home, opened my laptop, logged into the legacy monitoring dashboard I still had beneficiary access to. At 6:42 a.m. the next morning, my phone buzzed. Subject line: Margin exposure alert. And the markets hadn't even fully opened yet. 16 hours after I was fired, the market opened red. Not catastrophic. Not dramatic. Just red. Futures were down before the opening bell. Tech sector off nearly 3% pre-market. Asian markets had dipped overnight on weak earnings guidance from a major semiconductor manufacturer. Nothing historic. Just pressure. But pressure exposes leverage. By 9:47 a.m., Heliodyne AI, one of Hawthorne and Bell's prized pre-IPO tech placements that had recently gone public, missed its earnings estimate by 18%. The stock dropped 22% in under an hour. 22%. Now imagine holding a conservative diversified trust portfolio. That would sting a little. Now imagine reallocating 60% of that portfolio into high-volatility growth assets, some leveraged. That's not a sting. That's a tremor. By 11:15 a.m., the trust value had dropped $1.3 million on paper. Paper losses aren't real until you panic. Or until margin is involved. Remember that word. Margin. Vanessa's new advisors had quietly introduced moderate leverage into 2 tech ETFs to enhance upside. It looked smart during a bull run. It looks reckless on a pullback. At 12:03 p.m., crypto dipped 8% following regulatory comments from the SEC about upcoming compliance crackdowns. The trust's crypto index allocation dropped with it. I refreshed the dashboard. Down $1.8 million. Have you ever watched something you built for 6 years shake in a single afternoon? Here's the part no one talks about. I wasn't angry. I was calculating. Because 3 months earlier, when Vanessa first mentioned aggressive restructuring, I triggered a dormant clause in the trust agreement, a forensic audit provision tied to risk deviation thresholds. It didn't block her authority. It just monitored sudden portfolio volatility against historical risk baselines. And page 47 of the trust document was very specific. If the acting trustee materially altered the trust's risk profile without unanimous strategic documentation, co-beneficiaries retained legal review rights under fiduciary protection standards. Vanessa had documentation, but not unanimous strategic approval. At 2:26 p.m., my phone rang. Vanessa. Her voice wasn't panicked. Not yet. Just tighter. Is this normal? She asked. Short pause. I could have lectured her. Could have said I warned you. Instead, I said, calmly, yes. At the beginning. Silence on the other end. By market close, unrealized losses touched $2.4 million. Margin exposure warnings were triggered automatically by the bank's internal compliance system. That's when something shifted. At 7:12 p.m., I received a formal notification from First National Bank. Emergency trustee review meeting scheduled. Not requested by Vanessa. Requested by the bank's risk committee. Same conference room. Next morning. And this time, the room wouldn't feel so celebratory. But what happened in that meeting would change the power dynamic completely, and Vanessa still believed she was in control. The same conference room. Same polished table. Same sailboat painting on the wall. But this time, no one was smiling. Vanessa arrived 10 minutes late. Not dramatically late. just enough to signal control. But control felt thinner now. Her usual sharp confidence had dulled around the edges. She hadn't slept. You could see it. I was already seated. So was Martin Feld, our family attorney. But there were two additional faces this time, a senior risk officer from First National Bank and an external compliance auditor. That's never a casual addition. The risk officer began speaking before Vanessa could. He outlined the trust's mandate: capital preservation first, moderate growth second. He referenced the reallocation: 60% into high-volatility assets within 48 hours. Introduction of leveraged instruments. Exposure concentration beyond historical baselines. No emotion. Just numbers. Unrealized losses now hovering at $2.6 million. Still recoverable, but volatile. Then came the word that changes everything in financial rooms: fiduciary prudence. When you manage a trust, you are legally obligated to act in its best interest, not your ambition's interest. The compliance auditor presented documentation gaps. Hawthorne and Bell's incentive structure included performance-based bonuses tied to short-term growth spikes. That creates conflict of interest concerns in fiduciary structures. The trust agreement required strategic documentation consensus for major risk shifts. Vanessa had authority, but she had accelerated the shift too abruptly. Have you ever seen someone realize power has fine print? Martin slid a folder across the table. Not to me. To her. Under page 47's risk mitigation clause, majority voting authority could be temporarily suspended pending fiduciary review if risk deviation exceeded acceptable thresholds without co-beneficiary strategic acknowledgement. Vanessa's voice lowered. She set this up. All eyes moved to me. I didn't lean forward. Didn't smile. No, I said evenly. You accelerated it. Silence settled like weight. The vote wasn't dramatic. It was procedural. Authority temporarily suspended. Independent oversight reinstated. I was offered interim management control again. The irony was surgical. Same room. Same table. 24 hours earlier, she ended my authority. Now hers was paused. But here's where everyone expected me to reclaim the throne. To win. To gloat. Instead, I said something no one, especially Vanessa, anticipated. I decline reinstatement as sole acting trustee. The room froze. Because what I proposed next would permanently change the structure of our family trust, and neither of us would ever hold full control again. And that decision? That's why I laughed in the first place. But the real twist didn't happen in that conference room. It happened the next morning. The next morning, I didn't rush to reclaim control. I didn't call a board meeting. I didn't gloat. Instead, I brewed coffee, sat by the window, and watched the sunrise. The city looked the same. But the Whitmore Family Trust, all $12.4 million of it, was about to be restructured in a way that neither Vanessa nor anyone else saw coming. I activated the co-trust restructuring clause I'd quietly been preparing for months. This clause allowed for professional management and independent oversight if either trustee triggered excessive risk deviations. Suddenly, the trust became a professionally managed institutional portfolio. Risk allocations were locked. Diversification mandates were enforced. Any future aggressive maneuvers would require unanimous approval and full compliance documentation. Essentially, no single person could ever seize full control again. Not Vanessa. Not me. Vanessa arrived at 8:15 a.m., still confident, coffee in hand, expecting confrontation, explanation, maybe a lecture. Instead, I offered a calm smile. Morning, I said. Coffee? She blinked. Then noticed the new documents on the table. Penalties for Hawthorne and Bell had been invoked for fiduciary violations. Portfolio losses stabilized. Recovery was projected within 14 months. Her flashy new team was gone. The trust was secure. And she realized she had triggered the clause herself by moving too fast. She sat down. No words. Not yet. I explained simply, this was never about winning. It was about protection. She wanted authority. She wanted recognition. She wanted to prove herself. But she didn't read the fine print. She didn't anticipate the checks built into the system. Power without patience collapses. Ego ignores paperwork. And authority built on impulse rarely lasts. Why did you laugh at the bank yesterday? She asked quietly. I smiled again. Because you thought you fired me. You didn't. You freed me. And the trust. We drank our coffee in silence. Not awkward silence. Strategic silence. Reflection. Now, I pose the question to you. Have you ever been removed from something only to realize that the removal was actually protective? Would you have stayed calm, or would you have stormed the room? The lesson is simple and brutally ironic. Sometimes, letting the system work is stronger than trying to force a victory. Patience beats impulse. Observation beats confrontation. And a well-timed laugh can be more powerful than a battle fought in anger. So, when you hear the story of my sister firing me, remember this. She thought she won. But the one smiling, sipping coffee, and watching the sun rise was me. Comment, trust, if you've ever had family drama over money. Like the video if you believe patience is power. Subscribe for more stories where the twist comes full circle. And remember, some victories aren't loud. They're quiet, strategic, and unforgettable.